Today is May the 5th, 2026. This is an oral history from the archives of Iowa Broadcasting. I'm Paul Yeager, along with producer Cliff Brockman. Today, our guest is Beth Malicki from KCRG TV, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Hello, Beth.
Hello, how are you, Paul?
Wonderful. Never thought we would have these conversations, but when you start looking at it, your career, Beth, has been amazing on some of the things that you've covered. So let's just start at the beginning. Where are you from?
So I'm originally from Baldwin, Missouri, which is a suburb of St. Louis. And I lived in Missouri pretty much all my life, popped around a little bit to California, a little bit to the state of Washington, lived with some different family members. But really a Missouri girl at heart, although Iowa, pains me to say, might be better.
And actually, you're almost to the point, if my math is right, you've almost been in the state longer than you've been in the state of Missouri.
You are correct. I've been in Iowa now 21 years. Yeah. My husband and I moved here. I bet I was 26 when we moved, so almost there.
Okay. M-I-Z.
Z-O-U.
Okay, so that's where you went to the University of, what'd you study at Missouri?
So I didn't start at Mizzou. I started at the University, Miami of Ohio, and I hated it with my full chest and got the heck out of there. And was fortunate enough to have a very open-minded guidance counselor. I was working at the radio in Oxford, Ohio. I had written this big research essay about going to broadcast journalism and what it would entail, and realized I was in the wrong school, and shared that with my guidance counselor. And she said, "Yep, you're killing it on the forensics team. For any nerds out there, though, that's speech competitions." I was Amateur of the Year for the state of Ohio. Thank you very much, 1996. And so I transferred to Mizzou, which was my in-state university, which was where everybody from my high school, it felt like, went. And it's where I finally found my people and my purpose.
Well, I guess I jumped the gun on that a little bit. So when you were growing up in St. Louis, you were thinking broadcasting?
I was thinking, I know with everything, every cell in my body, that I'm very keen on talking and very lean on math. Mm-hmm.
We really are a lot alike. God, geez.
Oh, many of us broadcasters are. And as I've gotten older, I've come to respect math more. Yeah. I actually did a self-study on some basic algebra and percentages, and it's helped me in my career immensely. So mad respect for those math heads. It just took me a while to get there.
There should be like a math for reporters, because you do understanding percentages and TIF districts and figuring out what the valuation of taxes are. Those are all things that come up. Covering budgets at a city or a county or a state. So all of those things.
Excel.
Yep. Yeah, well, Excel's our friend. Now we just rely on other technologies to do it. So you're at the University of Miami, and you're not quite working, but journalism right away there at Mizzou when you're in Columbia? Mm-hmm. It works?
Yeah, I actually took a semester off and stayed home. My grandpa was really sick, and I lived with my grandma, my grandpa, and my mom for much of my childhood. And so my grandpa got sick. I was just sort of at a crossroads, knew I couldn't go back to Miami of Ohio, but it was a real bummer because I was on the dance team. Like, I was so cool. Not. And so I went to community college for a semester, worked 3 jobs, and figured some stuff out between the ears. And my grandpa got better and transferred to Mizzou and never looked back.
And that's a program where you get an incredible amount of opportunity, both if you want to do newspaper, if you want to do radio. Mm-hmm. You've got KOMU. It's all right there. Which one did you gravitate towards?
Definitely broadcast journalism side of things. That forensics history, my first love of speaking, I think, was grown from Holy Infant Catholic Church as an elementary school student. Any chance I got to read from the Bible, I would try to outdo the priest, and often did, if we're being really honest. The confidence to stand up there in front of my congregation was exactly, it just fed my soul, and I wish it were in a purely spiritual way, but it was not. It was more than that. It was different than that.
A performance way.
It was definitely a performance way, but not really on a stage for those who are pulled to theater. That not so much. I dabbled in that, and it just didn't do it for me. And when I got to Mizzou, they very quickly realized that I needed so much growth. I needed to understand history, political science, even science, pure science, in a way that I just wasn't up to snuff. And when you're at Mizzou, you're up against the best of the best in journalism. So my natural proclivity to speak on camera or to be on a performance side of things might have been okay, but what I was lacking was really, really obvious. And I had some brutal conversations with professors about what I needed to get caught up on. And it took me many, many years to become a news hound. I did not grow up in a news consuming family. And that did put me at a disadvantage. I did not come up, I'm the first in my family to graduate college. And that gives me some life experience that maybe a lot of my peers don't have, but I still needed the nuts and bolts of understanding the difference between a sheriff's office and a police department. And I just didn't know that until I was forced to.
And maybe made a mistake here and there.
Oh, I think I made more mistakes than my whole graduating class combined at Mizzou.
And so most of these are coming when you're still an undergrad?
Yes, it's still an undergrad. And so I did have a uncommon thing happen. I was anchoring weekends as a student. I'm going to class 5 days a week, obviously, reporting 1 day a week, which is part of the Missouri method at Mizzou. And the main anchor at the time left suddenly at KOMU, the NBC commercial TV station. And my news director, Stacy Woelfel, who was also my professor, said, "Can you fill in?" I said, okay, I'm at my classes end early enough. I can come in and do the 5 and the 6 and the co-anchor the 10. Sure. I can do some homework over my dinner break. I'll just bring all my stuff to work. And I did that for my senior year. And then they hired me. And I was there for 5 years after my senior year. So I worked full time right after I think I turned 22.
And was that where you thought you would start? Or were you thinking graduation, I'm going to go to Cape Girardeau or I'm going to go to Springfield and work or something? Was that?
Exactly.
Okay, that was more of the plan.
And because I got the job at the beginning of my senior year, I never made a tape.
Yeah.
So I never really got to create, everybody was creating their list. What are the stations? What are the market sizes? Who are the Mizzou grad? Who are news directors that you're going to target? I'm not sad that I missed out on that. I missed out on a ton of tears and a lot of stress. And I got health insurance immediately. So that was a bonus. And I absolutely loved it. And by 3 years in, I was an adjunct professor at Mizzou. So it was awesome. I miss it a lot.
When you're there as a full-time employee, did you jump straight into anchoring, or was once that anchor left, did you stay in that role as the main anchor, or did they say, no, you're going to have to go report for us a couple of days a week and then we'll still let you do weekends?
So because I was in school 5 days a week and they did need someone to co-anchor the 5, 6, and 10, it was just me. Now, I know you're looking at this very youthful 49-year-old and thinking to yourself, you must have looked like a baby on the set. I looked older then than I would like to think I do now because we were trying to make me look older. Because I was 22 and my co-anchor was in his late 40s. And I still had some vocal stims, if you will, that really showed my age. So I would overtly try to seem older at times. And if you see some of my early work, you'll see me make this face. Where nobody makes that face in the natural world. So I am grateful for that opportunity very, very young in life. I will say I owe so much of my ability to function, because I was so nervous, was my co-anchor Jim Reek, who is still to this day one of my dearest friends. He is just a good person. And he was there when I really needed a steady hand. Because imagine if your peer, your not very smart peer, gets the evening job that is not supposed to go to an undergrad. There were some feelings there, and I get it. And he soothed it all.
Well, and that's a lesson that they don't teach you at the journalism building, but that is one that all journalists learn, is to manage those egos and understand how to navigate a newsroom and the politics of. So you were learning in real time, just in a comfortable environment for you. It wasn't like you were far from home. You were in a place where you knew where Broadway was and College Avenue, and
Hmm.
made a little difference. So what was your biggest story that you covered when you were at KOMU?
So I'd been there about 2 years in the main role. I'd been out there for probably 3 years at this time. Um, and I was newly pregnant and no one knew. And we were in the homecoming parade, which is a big deal. Homecoming's huge on the University of Missouri Columbia campus. And we were in floats, and as I'm leaving, I waved to then Governor Mel Carnahan. I'm like, Governor Carnahan, good to see you. He's like, good to see you, Beth. And he's, on the top of his float. And it was just very low key, went back, lived my life. That next week, he was killed in a plane crash. And I was co-anchoring with Letitia Thompson, who was an undergrad, because my co-anchor was with our news director on a sweeps piece out of state. And there were no cell phones then. There's no social media then. And I knew Governor Carnahan, who was also a senatorial candidate, his campaign lead, and called, and he was sobbing because we needed to confirm that the plane crash rumors were true. And then we went back right on the air, and Tisha Thompson and I did live cut-ins overnight. And then the next morning, the morning team came in and co-anchored the morning newscast in the same jacket I was wearing in the 10 last night. Stayed through doing live shots all through that next day, did network hits because this was a national story. It must have been October, and the November election was coming up, and Mel Carnahan's name was still going to be on the ballot. They couldn't change it. It was too late, according to Missouri state law. When it came time for Mel Carnahan's funeral, Bill Clinton gave the eulogy, and every politician who was on a ballot was in Jefferson City, Missouri. And right after his funeral, I collapsed and was in the hospital for a minute because apparently when you're pregnant, you're supposed to drink water. And it was my first pregnancy, so I was unaware. So I can laugh at it now, but at the time it was a little dicey. And I learned a lot of lessons in that month about stretching yourself for work, which I think we all are still learning, and just the madness of the business. And it can suck you in if you let it. And I was so grateful to be in that place and time. It was awful because I didn't know Mel Carnahan personally, but I felt like that loss was more than just somebody we covered.
It's one of those career defining moments of how you cover something, because you're going to have a tragedy again and again in just the nature of the business. So it kind of taught you some things. So at what point did you decide, I think I've done everything I can in Central Missouri, it's time to try something different?
I mean, my husband and I talk about this all the time. Like it was so much about it was the peak of my life. I mean, I was getting to teach, which I feel very strongly and enjoy thoroughly. If I had an idea, if I wanted to do an investigative something, I got to start an investigative unit. They just let me. Like there was a lot of freedom in that role. And you lose 90% of your coworkers every year. And that's thrilling because they go off to do these incredible things, often in news, not always. And there was part of me, I remember feeling, I went to my boss about this, go, I'm having a weird feeling. He's like, I don't know what. I go, I'm feeling jealousy towards some of my students that are going on. And I've never felt jealous for my students. What's going on? He goes, oh, it's time for you to go. Is that what that's what that means? Great advice. Stacy Woelfel, always, he writes to this day, and just a wealth of knowledge. And I didn't even send out tapes. I really didn't do that much. But one of my former students worked at Magid, and he came down, Jason Forget, and he was like, can I take your tape up to one of my clients? Because I think you fit their vibe. I'm like, what, Midwest mom vibe? He goes, yes. That was KCRG.
Well, in knowing who your predecessors were, yes, I could see that consultant did well. You come into KCRG and you are replacing, if I'm correct here, Liz Mathis? Or was
Close.
She, or
Edie Fawcett.
You were Edie Fawcett, and then...
Because I reported days or Nightside, co-anchored the 10 with Bruce Downey, and then Liz left about 2 years in, retired from TV, And she was a wonderful mentor to me. And then I moved in and did the 5 and 6 and 10 with Bruce after Liz's retirement from TV. She stayed in working, but yeah.
And so Edie Fawcett is someone I remember, and many people do. Did you have conversations with her about what this station's about? What did she tell you?
So I did not connect with Edie until I was already here. But Renee Chu was someone I really looked up to at Mizzou, and she was obviously reporter anchor here at TV9, and she was kind enough to give me some of her time and some of her insights. And it wasn't just surface level. Everyone's so nice, and Cedar Rapids is an easy place to have a family, because at that time my husband and I had 2 little boys. She got down to brass tacks on make them show you the money. And I appreciated that.
Renee giving lessons even after the fact. So describe TV9. What's the date that you walk in there?
So it was the day after my son turned 4. So it was March 11th, 2005. And I did a live shot covering the Cedar Rapids Community School District. I met Laurel Day, who retired from the school district not that long ago. She is like the cog that kept the whole district together for many, many moons through many superintendents. And the story was about how they were going to shift from having custodial more in-house. They were going to maybe have it be more contracted out. And I'm sitting in this meeting. I have to keep reminding myself I'm in Cedar Rapids, not Columbia. And this gentleman sitting next to me keeps nodding at some of the comments. I'm like, why are you here? Because school board meetings can be pretty dry. And he goes, I'm a custodian at fill in the blank school. And I go, will you come in the hallway and talk to me? So got an interview with him, did a live shot, nailed it. And it came back and Mike Wagner, who's also a Mizzou grad, it's like, you got a soundbite and you hit that live shot with no problem whatsoever. It's really impressive. So as you can imagine, my head tripled in size. And then the next week of live shots all failed so badly, I thought I was going to get fired. I did not, obviously. But it was a great first day, and it was a brutal first week. And that's TV news.
It is in a nutshell. So reporting for a while, and then Liz leaves. Was it an automatic you were going to slide into that anchor chair, or was there...
You'd have to ask Becky Luchin-Gardner and John Phelan. They would know more than I. I was a little bit at a point in my career. I think I was in my 3rd year of my 3-year contract. And my husband and I were like, yeah, we like it here, but, maybe we could try something else. And we were open to it. And Liz leaving was a little bit surprising. And then the conversations went really, really positively. And then I got pregnant in the flood of 2008. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
In that order.
Oh yeah. Let's get to 2008 then. That was quite a wild year. You have the tornadoes of Parkersburg, and then within 2 weeks, Cedar Rapids is underwater. Downtown, your studios, the streets you come in on. It is a historic event. And I've heard you talk on panels before about what it was like covering that flood. At what point did you know it was going to be as big of a deal that it ended up being?
Oh, it's a good question, because I think at that point in my career, I had covered things where the adrenaline is rushing and you're locked in and you're there for like 2 days and it's not stopping, not even pausing. I think it was probably after day 3, check my math, when I came outside and the National Guard was there, of nonstop coverage. And it felt like, I know I've been covering this thing and it's raw and it's real and we're communicating everything that we know. And it was shocking to go outside and see no lights, because there was no electricity power to downtown. You could actually hear the river from the front steps of the station, because that's as close as the floodwaters were. And then just seeing men in camouflage, I just broke down. It was like, obviously it was also at my emotional limit, but I'd never experienced that before. And then knowing I'm going to go home, I'm going to try to eat a little bit, I'm going to try to sleep a little bit. And as soon as I can, I'm coming back, because you really didn't want to leave. You felt like you were kind of abandoning people, which is maybe delusions of grandeur in that moment. But we really, Bruce and I talked about that a lot. We just wanted to be glued to work, which is wildly unhealthy, but understandable.
Right, because at this point, 4 years in, you had connected with the community. You knew it was better than if this would have happened in, say, your first 6 months. You knew enough to know what the river meant to the region and the area, and you'd seen other floods. And describe what you and Bruce did there. You said fourth day it kind of hit, but those first couple days, are you outside? Are you in the studio? I forget what it was, what had power, what didn't, and why you were outside.
So the first couple of days, we still had power because we do have a generator. So we were fortunate. My husband also worked downtown in what was then called the ASEC building. Not ASEC building. It's a very tall building downtown over the intermodal bus station. And he had to get out of there. Thankfully, he could leave and work from home because we had 3 small children and our kids' school shut down. And I was the one who picked up our oldest from school, and it was raining so hard. For those of you who remember June of 2008, the rain came before the flood, and the rain was relentless. And pick up my little boy, Brooks was about 7 years old in the back seat of my car, the minivan. And I look back in the rearview mirror. I'm like, buddy, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm pretending like I'm dead. And I'm like, what? Why? He goes, because then I won't know this is happening. So he could even realize that this was not normal rain, school having no power, and me frantically coming to get him, and people were in tears, that he recognized in his little childlike heart that he needed to shut down to protect himself. So got him home, got him reassured. Dad was there, so he was, I think, good to go. And then I don't think I saw that kid for like 3 days. So it was not normal. And I don't know how to impress upon people who are younger than us, because they think, well, weren't you getting alerts on your phone? Weren't you getting messages? Weren't people texting you like I'm safe? Weren't they marked safe from this event in Facebook? None of that existed. It was really just TV and radio and beautiful print journalism. It was just a different time. If you had a cell phone, it was kind of just for talking. Or if you had to send a text, you hit the R like 3 times to get the S. It was wild. So the only thing people knew to do was turn on their TV. And that's where it felt like we had purpose, is we could hopefully communicate with them and give them some sense of control, just to know what's going on.
And familiarity. Oh, it's Bruce and Beth. They'll get us through this.
And especially Bruce. I mean, he'd been with, the station for decades by then. I was still, that new girl.
Mm-hmm. But that event, that 2008 cemented you. You were no longer going to be the new girl. You were the one that helped get us through the flood, is the way you're going to be known in town, right? I still think that.
I think it's a fascinating study in like social science or sociology of some respect, in that because we were the ones bringing people reassuring and scary information, along with obviously our team of meteorologists who were giving perhaps the most terrifying information of, well, we don't know how high the rivers are going to get, that because we were the ones telling people this, hopefully in a calm, reassuring tone, they associate the gentleness of the messenger, where often we are not seen so lovingly as the messenger, but for whatever reason, in the, encapsulating the moment that was the flood of 2008, people gave us a ton of grace. And, we tried to meet where they were. And because we were on a generator, we were pushing the generator to its limits. And so we occasionally had to power down and switch to a new generator. I'm getting out of my depth now on what all happened behind the scenes. But they're like, so we can stay on the air, but we're going to have you do it in a van by the river. So we literally, in these, and the mosquitoes were everywhere because floodwater's high in the middle of hot June. I've never been through anything like that. And Joe and I went to the derecho after the derecho hit Vinton a few years after 2008. We've obviously had the derecho here, which was horrific, not to minimize that in any way, shape, or form. But nothing was like the live reporting nonstop for the flood of 2008, at least for me.
I was just driving through Cedar Rapids like a month ago, and I still get the sense that, well, this is where the water was here, and there's still some signs that, yeah, and I know that there's this new building here and this new building there, but it's going to stay with me about that. So I remember stopped on 380 going, I've never ever seen water in any of those places in all the years driving through that town. So you mentioned the derecho 2020,
Mhm.
the pandemic. Has there been anything from flood to pandemic that were big stories that you recall?
I definitely anything around the Caucasus, and like leading up to the flood of '08, we had a series of wild news events that just seemed to make the flood like, well, of course now we're going to have a once in a lifetime flood. When it came to the derecho of 2020, it also felt like, oh, the Iowa caucuses imploded in a way that they may never recover from, have not recovered from. And right before that, just a worldwide pandemic. And so by the time the derecho hit, we were just beside ourselves with, first of all, how do we pronounce derecho? Second of all, how do you cover a natural disaster in a setting of a pandemic? And what we found was it doesn't go great all the time. There's too many variables working against you. Not that there was no malfeasance, so to speak. It was just the perfect storm.
And again, another part of the book that Beth's writing about your career and what you've covered and understanding it. There's distances. At this point, Bruce is retired, right? By 2020.
Yes. So Bruce retired. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to still have connections with Bruce, and he retired on a Friday. Over that weekend is when it was declared, I believe when WHO, I don't know if it was declared a pandemic that weekend, but it was getting there. And so he scooted out. Boy, he scraped by just at the right time.
And so then you are without a co-anchor at this point?
Chris Earl had stepped in and was he stepped in pretty seamlessly. Like he was there Monday after Bruce was gone Friday. So that I was super grateful for. And, Chris also grew up in St. Louis. We had kind of similar childhoods in some respects, and we're about the same age with kids the same age who know each other. So it was a nice handoff.
And then you got to deal with that Mertens guy. When did Jim
Yeah.
Mertens come into the picture?
Jim came in, about 3-4 years ago. And, my first co-anchor ever is named Jim, whom I absolutely adore. And I just think it's perfect that this Jim is also Jim because there are a lot of similarities. Jim is one of the few boomers left in the building, and we do not fail to remind him of that. But I think the thing I like, there's a lot of things I like best about Jim, to be honest. He cares about this business very deeply and does not lose his sense of humor in trying to tell the most honest story possible. And that is a really difficult needle to thread. And I'm grateful because sense of humor is big for me. It's one of my coping mechanisms. And Jim is a great person to laugh with. And he never forgets why we're here.
The viewer has long been his destination of everything he does. I mean, that's in the time being competitors with him and friends with him. I don't want to show you the text exchanges because we all have them with him. But what has it been like with him now navigating a world that is changing and the news is fake and the news is this and these last 4 years have been quite a ride too. More of the industry than maybe necessarily news stories themselves. Is that accurate?
Yeah, the world around us seems to be spinning ever faster, and Jim does a nice job of giving us some historical perspective. I do not, for example, remember the Vietnam War. I do not remember, I've never known anybody who was drafted. I've never known that level of leadership uncertainty when Nixon left office. And Jim could talk about where he was in those moments. Draft cards especially, he talks a lot about. And the role of journalism and how it made sense of a nonsensical time for him. It just fits. I cannot control so many aspects of the world outside. I can't even control some days the world that feels inside. And I do believe that as journalists, we are just fortunate to get to spend time adding context to truth and hopefully listening to people who often feel ignored or overlooked. Jim cries more than anybody I've ever worked with. He is so wildly compassionate that I don't know if people always get that from him because he is such a jokester. And I'm grateful he came here to TV9 at this juncture in my life. I feel really lucky.
Is that the same? Could you have given that answer, not necessarily about Jim, but about journalism in 1998 when you're in Columbia? I mean, where did all of this come from to get to that answer that you just delivered?
You know, I do think it's being in the business 27 years. I've seen the business chew up and spit out a lot of people I respect who are way smarter than I am. You know, there are little moments where we're agonizing over a piece of a story or an aspect of a story because we're just not sure, or we're not sure we're landing it right. We're coming off really hard and we don't mean to. There's more nuance to it. And the conversations we have around that, to go out and to hear, for example, a woman who suffered a horrific tragedy in her family. And she said, I've watched all your coverage and you were so fair. You cannot give me a greater compliment than you were so fair. And this woman lost more than I've never seen anybody lose what she has lost. And that, yeah, it meant everything.
As someone who studied, taught, worked, and you mentioned the flood of '08 where we don't have the cell phone. Tell me about the technology, how that aspect has changed. Say you were teaching today, say you were studying today, but you are working today. Tell me about the role of technology in the industry.
It has changed the game so profoundly, I still don't think I've wrapped my mind around it. And because it's so accessible and people can find information anywhere they want it, I believe, and this is self-serving, it has never been more important to know where your information is coming from and to get multiple perspectives. So I tell people, if you only watch TV9, first of all, thank you. Also, you're doing it wrong. You have got to absorb multiple perspectives, and not every voice has equal weight. They don't, sorry. Expertise does matter, and lived experience matters too. I really, really drive this home when I have the opportunity to speak to young people. If you are naturally a little bit critical, you side-eye a little bit, you ask, show me the receipts, you might have a natural journalist heart where you really want to get to the truth. But if you are naturally a little bit nasty and a lot of it cynical, and you think the worst in humanity, please don't go into this. Because it will only poison those around you who still believe. I look at Jim Mertens, he still believes. I look at Danielle Wagner. Now she believes in dogs more than humans, but we're going to allow it. She's got reasons.
But if you're that cynical one, you can't go sit in the living room of somebody who lost their family and do it well to the point where you're going to get the compliment that you did of that you were fair. But I mean, that's still the part, as we said at the very beginning, you're an Iowan now, and Missouri's the same way. But I mean, we still want to be welcome into people's homes physically as well as electronically. And it still matters to be able to be fair and to tell that story and to have them go, yes, it's Jim and Beth. Sure. I like that. That's still part of it. I mean, it is for me. I don't know. Maybe you agree.
I do agree. I do. There are a lot of people who want to be able to tell their story. A lot of people want to share their story and celebrate things that have happened in their lives and talk about the hard parts. And not everybody should be trusted with that range. And I'm really grateful to have been here for 21 years and to be doing this for 27 years. Um, do I always get it right? No. Am I always in the right headspace? Of course not. And that's when you surround yourself with people in the newsroom who can kind of get you back on track to put the work in front.
Who are the next wave of journalists coming through? What are they believing, not believing? What flags are they waving that you're trying to help them out?
Yesterday, a new coworker who we just hired, who's about to graduate from the University of Iowa, Liz Schultz, sits next to me, and I have to tell myself, Beth, don't be weird. Don't fawn all over her and be like, I'm so excited to see a young person excited about this business and care about it so much that maybe you should care about it a little bit less. She is the brightest example of the future of this business. She is obviously a digital native. She is scared and nervous and acts with bravery. And she speaks honestly about the things that aren't working. She doesn't push it down like I think maybe we kind of pushed it down and just said, oh, I'll muscle through it. And then it took twice as long because we didn't ask for help. She just truly embodies what I think the future of this calling is and can be.
What word do you use to describe you? You're Beth Malicki what?
Oh, very obnoxious.
Okay. Fair.
Very yapper. I'm a yapper. I do not love small talk. Every time I talk to somebody, I really want to get down to the marrow as quickly as possible. Some people call it trauma sharing. Not afraid of that. Working on it in therapy. And I do think that every single person has something inside of them that is wildly interesting to me, if only I can get them to go there. So I do like talking to people, but I will say, like in the order of my favorite things to do, yapping is obviously up there. Reading's higher. So if really given a full day to do whatever I want, it would be reading alone. And if I'm ever fortunate enough to retire, I think I will just go somewhere and read all day, every day, and turn into just a soft, fleshy person.
We could argue about what's your genre of reading, but
I take turns.
It's what? Oh, it takes turns?
Okay, the only thing I don't do, I know it's really popular, but like the fantasy romance, it's not my jam. I think I've just it's just part of my history now. I am rereading Huck Finn because I read the Pulitzer Prize winner from last year, James, and then wanted to reread Huck Finn so that I could sort of compare and contrast James. I'm about to start the book, The 12-Hour Walk, that a friend of mine recommended, and Joe Winters just went on a very long walk. He refers to it as a pilgrimage and said it was just life-changing. I do like some of the self-helpy stuff, but I'm a big fan of nonfiction, and obviously I love literature. That's probably my favorite.
Yeah, I have a hard time with fiction too. But Huck Finn's good. I mean, and then you can sit there and picture, oh, I know the Mississippi. I kind of know there's a chance I know what exactly he was writing about at that point.
It flooded in 93.
Yeah.
I lived through that.
Yeah. Lastly, I'm going to ask, what's going to be the lead line of your biography, Beth?
Oh, I hope it's, I parented my kids the best I could. I'm very, very, very lucky to have 3 hysterical kids who still reach out to me daily and want to share their lives with me. And that I don't know if there's anything greater. I married the most chill man in the universe. People are like, oh, you're so likable. You seem so nice. I'm like, yeah, you got to meet my husband. Because then they do. And then they're like, wow, he is better. I'm like, yeah, I know. And that's the way I like it. I mean, my family is outstanding. My mom and my mother-in-law, I'm trying to get them to move here. That would be my dream. But my family is absolutely everything, and they have been the reason why I've gotten to do this work for as long as I have. And they have informed so much of my storytelling. There is something about being connected to children who are now adults and seeing life through their eyes and what they're having to manage around everything from filling out paperwork for your first job and answering the question, so what is FICA? To how do I know this is someone I want to marry? To how do I know this is a career that I want to do for 40 years? Well, you don't. Just do what you want to do for one.
One day at a time. That's all we can do. All right, Beth Malicki, thank you so very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul.
Beth Malicki, anchor, reader, instructor for KCRG TV in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. This has been an oral history for the Archives of Iowa Broadcasting, along with producer Cliff Brockman. I'm Paul Yeager. Thank you so very much for watching.